Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Abhay and we are covering the AZ-900 certification, that is Azure Cloud Fundamentals. So this is the second part of this playlist and the chapter 5. In the last video we talked about the networking, like how Azure manage the networking and how like we can create the private and public networks, public IPs, and how we can apply the different kind of a security on the network using the security group, okay, NSG. Then we talked about what is load balancer and DNS. Okay, all these things we have talked in the last video, and uh, till now we have completed Azure services and how what is Azure architecture, that all we discussed in the last videos. In this video particularly, we are going to start the third module, which is describe Azure Management and Governance. This is the last module. Okay, like in the HN900, like the whole course is divided into the three module. The first one is like basically like in there that like we discussed about the basic cloud concepts, like what is cloud and what are the benefits of the cloud, types of cloud. Okay, all these things we discussed in the module 1. Then in the module 2nd, we talked about some basic Azure architecture, then how the resources is managed on the Azure portal, like what is resource groups, subscriptions. Then we talked about what are the basic services that Azure provides, like app service, then key vault, and we also saw some of the services on the portal, right? And then we discussed about the networking in the Azure. So all this part belongs to the second module, and today like we are going to start the last and third module of the agent 100, that is describe Azure Management and Governance. So if you see the percentage here, like it is having a 30 to 35% weightage in the exam. So this module is also important as per the exam. Okay, so first in this module, like we are going to understand Azure identity, access and security part. Okay, so I have listed down some topics like single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, then we will talk about what is this conditional access, then other few things like intra id and role based access control. All these we are going to discuss in this video. So before I start this video, like I am requesting you all guys, so to like and subscribe my channel. I am hoping at least 1,000 subscriber in this 2026. Okay, and if you have any question, then you can put your question in the comment. I will try to reply on the comment, and if you want me to create separate video on any topic related to Azure or AI services on the Azure, then I will like definitely create. Okay, and regarding this document which I am sharing right now, if you want this document, then you can find the link in the description. Okay, so let's start, and let's understand first what is this single sign-on and multi-factor authentication, then the conditional access. Okay, so basically, in general terms, like we are going to understand all these three, not as per the Azure. Okay, this is also provided on the Azure, but in general time, like we are going to understand this single sign-on. So for an example, if you know, like on the browser, sometimes if you are using the Chrome, okay, and if you logging in the Gmail, okay, if you logging in the Gmail, then in the new tab, if you open some other service of the Google, okay, like you already opened the Gmail, then you open the Google Photos in that second tab. Okay, so that time like you don't have to logging again. So okay, so that if we talked about the definition of the single sign-on, that it means allow users to log in once and access multiple application without needing to re-enter credentials. Okay, so basically in the Chrome, when you logging one time in that particular tab, then if you open some other application related to under that particular Google, okay, then you don't have to re-enter your credentials again and again. Okay, so that is a single sign-on. One more example, like in terms of Azure, like if you already working in the office, okay, and if you logging to the Outlook, and then you if you try to logging to the Teams, then you don't have to put the credentials again, okay, like because in the system, in the Windows system like Outlook, if you logging to the Outlook, then Teams will automatically detect that account and it will logging to your account, okay. So that is what we called as a single sign on, okay. So you sign in once and you can access that in a multiple applications, okay. And one more example, like what is the use of this, okay. So we just talked about as a user perspective, but when you are a developer, okay, and if you want to create something like this, when you are creating multiple application, okay, suppose like you have multiple applications and you want, if users are already logging in the one application, then user can access other applications with the same credentials within the system, okay. It is not like the logging user logged in the one browser, then he go to the other browser and he logging there, and without credential, like he will be able to. That is not the case in the one system. In the one system, like if user logging to the one application, and if you allow as users to logging with the same credential in the other applications, that we call as a single sign-on, okay. So using this service in the Azure, you can also create such kind of applications, okay. I hope you understand what is single sign-on. By the meaning of this, like you can easily understand, okay. Sometimes like in questions they will ask something question like this: you logging once to your company Microsoft account and can access Outlook, Teams, SharePoint without logging it again. Then we have the multi-factor authentication, okay. Sometimes for an example, when you logging to the Instagram, okay, suppose like first time like you are logging to the Instagram, then when you enter the password, okay, you enter the password, that's the first step. Sometimes what Instagram did, like it also send the OTP to your number, okay. So that is the second step. So when the multiple steps are involved, first is password and the second one is OTP, okay. When the two steps are involved or more steps are involved, that means it's a multi-factor authentication, okay. Multi means multiple steps authentication, okay. It can be anything, like in the first step you enter the password, and in the second step like you put the OTP. It might be differ, okay. First like you have to do some biometrics authentication, maybe face or finger authentication, then you will put the password, okay. So when you have to put two authentication or more, okay, that means it's a multi-factor authentication, okay. By the definition, it's required two or more verification method to sign in: something you know, password; something you have, phone authenticator app; something you are, okay, biometrics. All these patterns, like sometimes like in the all the authentication steps, you will see this kind of either it's a password, either it is phone or authenticator app, either it's your biometrics, okay. Something like that they will put, okay. I hope like you understand what is single sign-on and what is multi-factor authentication. You don't have to confuse, okay. Single sign-on means by single sign-on you can access the multiple application, and in the multi-factor authentication, like you have to authenticate multiple times in order to access something. Then we have the conditional access, okay. By the definition, like it's provide automated access control decisions based on the condition: user location, device status, risk level, sign in behavior, okay. So let me take the example again: conditional access, okay. If you remember the famous thing, the some years ago, like PUBG was banned in the India, right? And but it was available in the China, okay. So maybe like China, because it was originated in the China, so maybe like they put the conditional access so that Indian peoples cannot access the PUBG, okay. Even Indian government apply that rule, like they cannot in the India, like they the users cannot access that PUBG, okay. So that means it is a conditional access, okay. It can vary different uh, based on your conditions, okay. Like so the first point is user location, okay. If you want to restrict someone, if you want to restrict someone based on their location, then you can put conditional access, okay. So if they are in your condition, then that means like they can access, otherwise they don't access, okay. And what is the device status, also based on this, like you can filter out some access authentication, okay. Then the risk level, then the sign in behavior. Okay, sign in behavior means maybe like how they are signing, maybe like they are doing sign in again and again with the different devices. Okay, so if they are trying to sign in multiple times, maybe 10 times they are trying to sign in. Okay, so maybe like in that case, like you will not allow them to sign in again 11th time, and you will block account. Okay, something like that you will do. Okay, so basically in the conditional access, it is depends on your condition, like in what condition you want to grant the access or uh, fail the access. Okay, for example, if you try to log in from the outside the office or from another country, Azure ask for extra verification before allowing access. Okay, this is also an example. Okay, let's understand what is this intra ID, and related to this, we also have these role-based access control. Okay, so these two sometimes confused you. First of all, like what we discussed till now, single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, and conditional access, that can apply to the user. Okay, like this is the connection between the user and the application. But what we are trying to understand now, Entra ID and the role-based access control. Okay, that is also authentication and authorization methods in the Azure, by which like you can apply those single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, conditional access. Okay, so those were single sign-on and MFA, multi-factor authentication, and the conditional access were the definition. But how you can apply those things? So these are the tools. These are the tools. Microsoft Intra ID and role-based access control are the tools to something like that. Okay, so let's understand these two. First of all, this Intra ID, earlier like it was Azure Active Directory. Okay, so in the exam it might possible instead of Intra ID that they will put Azure Active Directory name. Okay, so you would have to remember like this this Azure Active Directory is nothing but a Microsoft Intra ID. So Microsoft Entra ID is a cloud-based identity service that manage users logging and authentication in Azure. Okay, so basically it is used only for the authentication purpose. Like by Entra ID, like you can register your application, you can register the user, then based on the condition, like you can allow or deny the authentication. Think of Entra ID as a security office of your company. It store user accounts. Okay, so in the Entra ID, you can store the user accounts or maybe user details. Then verify logging, username and password. Support single sign-on, MFA, and the conditional access. Okay, so using the Entra ID, you can apply these three: single sign-on, MFA, and conditional access. Okay, you can implement these three using the Entra ID. Without the Intra ID, user cannot log into the Azure. Okay, this is also one point. Okay, for an example, you when you logging into the Azure portal, Microsoft 360 Teams, your identity is verified by the Microsoft Intra ID. Okay, this is kind of a security guard. Okay, security guard to your application. Okay, so when user logging to your application, Intra ID check whether that person is valid or not. Okay, based on these three parameters that you set. Then we have the role based access control, that is part of authorization. Okay, like that is not authentication, that is a authorization. Okay, so basically once user access your application, okay, user came to your application, you grant the access. After that, this role based access control come in picture, and role based access control decide like what is the role of that particular user. Okay, like it decide what access should I give to that particular user. Okay, so by the definition, role based access control, what action a user can perform in Azure based on their assigned role. Okay, so using the role based access control, what we can do, suppose if your user wants to access the application, okay, and so you will decide the role of that particular user, that what user can do. Sometimes you can assign only the read a role, so user can only read your application, like they cannot update anything or write anything in your application. But if you give the right access as well, like if you provide the right or update role as well, then user can also update in your application. Okay, so Entra ID check who you are, that means authentication, and RBAS, role based access control, decides what you are allowed to. Okay, I hope you understand the difference between these two. These are the simplest definition possible. Okay, Entra ID check who you are, role based access control decides what you are allowed to do. Okay, and we have different roles in the role based access control, like owner, full control, contributor can manage resources, and the reader can only view resources. And we also have a lot of roles. Okay, like for the right purpose we have different roles, and it differ based on the service to service. Like if you are creating the DB services, then it might possible like you will find different sets of roles, and if you are creating the app service, then you will find the different sets of roles. Okay, but these three are the common one. Okay, let's understand all these three. Okay, sometimes might possible that in the exam, like they will give you some condition, and they will ask you like what access you give to the user in such condition. Okay, so you have to select from these three. Okay, so let's understand these three. So first of all, reader. Okay, if user have the reader role, then they can only view the resources. Okay, they cannot delete or they cannot write anything in the database if they have only the reader role. Okay, but when they have the contributor role, contributor means like they can also contribute to that particular resource. Okay, so in the contributor role they have the right access as well. They have the read access, they have the write access, even they have the delete access. Okay, but the data only they can delete. Okay, they can play with the data, they can write the data, everything. Okay, but they cannot delete the complete resource. Okay, if you have the database, if you have the SQL server, then if user have the contributor role, then they cannot delete the whole server. Okay, they cannot delete the whole database. Okay, because if they have, because they are the contributor, so contributor only can access the data, can write the data, can delete the data inside the server, but not the server. But we have the owner. But if the user have the owner, then they have the full control over the resource. Okay, so they can also delete the resource, and they can also delete the SQL server, they can delete anything if they want. Okay, if the service is not in the use, they can delete. Okay, I hope you understand the basic difference between these three. Okay, these are the main ones which is generally common in all the services. Okay, a developer can create virtual machines but cannot delete the entire subscription, because role based access control limits their roles. Okay, so so developer, if the user is the developer, and if you wants to give the role to that particular developer, then which one will you will give the role. Okay, and so for the developer you will give contributor role. Okay, because even sometimes like they might need to update some data. Okay, but for the developer you will not give the owner role, right? Because they are developer, like they cannot delete the virtual machine. But yeah, if they can also create the virtual machine. Okay, but cannot delete. Again, this is important. Intra ID means authentication, that means logging, and role based access control, authorization, that means permission. So user enter, and then we have Microsoft Intra ID logging verified. Once Intra ID allow users to logging. Okay, this is the last line. It is unable to. Let me move my cursor somewhere else. Okay. If you see the last line, okay, first user try to logging, then Microsoft Intra ID verified that logging. If the user is valid, then it will check what is the role of that particular user using the role based access control. If the permission is checked, and if the user is having the proper access, proper role, then they are allowed. Okay, we will give the access. You understand what is role based access control. Then we discussed the what is role in the role based access control. Then we have the scope in the role based access control. Okay, so basically scope is nothing but a role-based access control can be applied at a different level. Okay, so scope are these four: management group, subscription, resource group, and resource. If you put the role-based access control only at the resource level, then it can be only applicable to that particular resource. Okay, but if you give the user if you like give the user role as a reader, but at the group level, okay, so they can also read all the resources inside this particular resource group. Okay, so it is a top down approach. Okay, like if you give someone if you give someone management group access, then they can also access all the subscription inside this and all the resource group inside this and all the resources inside this. Okay, so it's a top down hierarchy. If someone have the access to the top level, they can also access the root level. Okay, then we have this external identities, which is B2B and guest user. Okay, Azure allows external users like partner and vendors to access resources securely. A vendor get reader access to a resource group. Okay, so this is just an minor topic. External identities, you just have to remember this keyword. Okay, external. So it is just for the outside people. Okay, like who are not in the part of Microsoft, or who are not the part of Azure. Okay, and if they wants to see some resource or resource group, then we can give them a reader access. Okay, so this is just one concept. Let me move to next. Okay, let's understand this. What is Azure policy and what is blueprint? Okay, so basically Azure policy is a governance tool that let you create, assign, and manage policies that control or audit your Azure resources. Example: deny creation of a resources outside a specific reason, only allow certain virtual machines SQs for the cost control, require text like an environment or a cost center. So basically, let me take one more example. Uh, if you are a manager, okay, and if you are a product manager, and there are a lot of teams are working under you, and there are a lot of developers are working under you. Okay, and they are going to create some services on the Azure, like they are going to create virtual machines. Okay, but you want some specific virtual machines. Okay, like you don't want that they will create a virtual machine for the higher prices, like for SQs. Okay, higher SQs. Okay, like you want some specific virtual machines, like that virtual machine should have only 8 GB RAM, and they should only have something 2 GB, sorry, 200 GB memory, like that. You want to put some limit on that virtual machine that developer is going to create later point of time. Okay, so how you can control that part if you are a manager? Okay, and later if you just want to control that like whoever come in future or something, if they want, if you are they are going to create the virtual machine, then you wants to just restrict them based on some conditions. Then what you can do, you can create one policy. You can create one policy on Azure, and you can apply that policy to your subscription, to your resource, to your management group, to your at any level you can apply the policy. Okay, when you apply the policy, okay, you created the policy, you set some rules that virtual machine RAM should not be greater than 8 GB. Then you apply that policy to your subscription. Okay, so later when a developer come to your subscription, and when they try to create virtual machine, and if they try to create the virtual machine more than 6 GB RAM, okay, that time like they will not create. Okay, like they will not able to create, because that time like they will encounter with the error. Okay, like and we the policy will throw the error that you cannot create virtual machine that have the greater than 8 GB RAM. Okay, so something like rules you can apply using the Azure policies. Okay, if you the same hierarchy will follow. Okay, if you apply the policy at the management group, then that policy will be applicable in the whole subscription under this, and even the resource group and the resources. Okay, so it's a tree hierarchy. If you apply the policy at the top, like it will go down in each level. Okay, and if you apply the policy at the subscription level, then it will be applicable to a resource group and the resource individual resource. You can also apply the policies to the resource group, so under only that particular resource group, whatever the resources are present, only in that, like, it will be applicable. Okay, so you can apply policy at the different levels. Okay, so this particular things you have to remember in the exam. Okay, so like sometimes, like, they will put up some conditions and they will ask at what level you will put the policy. Okay, so uh, if you understand like what is these all for, and then you will definitely understand like how at what level you have to put the policy. Okay, so it's a tree kind of a structure. Okay, if you put at a top level, then it will be inherited to a root level. Okay, so let's understand what is this Azure Blueprint. So Azure Blueprint is a service that help organizations define and deploy a standard set of Azure resources, policies, and rule together. Okay, so Blueprint is also a tool by which, like, you can manage your resources and you can manage your policies and rules together, like all kind of rules and all kind of policies you can manage using a blueprint. Okay, so blueprint, by the name you can understand, like, blueprint is nothing but a just whatever you have created the rule and policy, so you just downloaded the blueprint from one time. Okay, then later, maybe like if you are creating some other subscription or other management group, okay, you can use that blueprint and you can apply the same set of rules, same set of policy on the other things as well. Okay, but I'm not sure like whether this will be a part of AZ-900 or not. Earlier it was, but I checked this one, and this one will be deprecated in the July 2026. Okay, so this is going to be expire. So I'm not sure like whether this will be in the exam or not. Okay, but just for the concept, I have written down here. Okay, so it's more like a service. Okay, it will just store your policies, all the rules inside the blueprint. Okay, so you can just copy from one place and you can apply to the other place using a blueprint. Okay, like for an example, a company wants every new subscription to have security policy enabled, a specific role based access roles assigned, certain resource group created, then they create a blueprint and apply it to every new subscription automatically. Okay, I hope that's all for this video. We talked about the access part only, like how Azure manage the access. Okay, first, like, we discussed the single sign-on multi-factor authentication. Then we talked about the conditional access, then Entra ID, then role-based access control, then role-based access control hierarchy scopes. Okay, and that's all we discussed, and then we talked about. Let me go to that slide. Yeah, then we talked about the Azure policies, and okay, what is Azure policies, and at what level you can apply the policy. Okay, that we discussed. This is also important for the exam purpose. Okay, so that's all for this video. I hope you enjoy the videos. Please like and subscribe my channel. If you have any doubt, you can put out in the comment. Okay, thank you.